After years of failed gardens, you're ready to quit. It steals your summers, frustrates you, and you think, maybe I should just keep buying my produce. I completely get it because I've been there. But what if the problem isn't you or your efforts, but it's the so-called conventional wisdom everyone tells you to follow? I know what it feels like to pour hours, energy, and hope into a garden that just drains you instead of feeds you. After I almost quit after burnout in my humongous garden, I realized that the problem wasn't me, but it was the conventional advice I was following in a garden that didn't fit my reality. So I stripped it down and I built a small space, high value system that actually works. Today, I'm going to share the 5 hacks that transformed my garden from overwhelming to manageable so that you can finally get results without losing your summers. Most of what we're taught about gardening, like the massive plantings, the endless tilling, and perfect schedules, is designed for a professional farm with a bunch of employees and not a small space home garden. We've been set up to fail, but inside every gardening struggle is a hidden opportunity to grow more food, save time, and be less dependent on the grocery store. Small space, high value gardening with systems that actually work is how you stop your garden from running your life and finally get results. Even in a simple 2-foot by 4-foot container, you can start feeling the relief of real results. Imagine walking outside and harvesting food for actual meals while cutting your grocery bill by hundreds of dollars. And that's exactly what I show you how to do in my free training, which I linked below, and I would absolutely love for you to join me. Hack number 1 is all about starting small and then designing your garden around what actually works for your time, your energy, and your physical abilities. I learned a lot of lessons from my last garden where for years I ran 28 raised beds and in-ground gardens across 3.5 acres. It was absolutely exhausting and I hit complete burnout. My huge space was stealing major amounts of time and energy instead of giving me freedom, and then I hit a wall where I needed to scale back and then make my garden finally fit my life. Conventional wisdom says that bigger is better, but in reality, bigger can often lead to burnout. Small is really powerful if you design it with intention. And this is the foundation of a solo garden, a system built for one person to maintain without needing extra help. You can use grow bags no bigger than you can carry and raised beds if your soil is difficult to work with. You can diversify and set things up so that they support you, and this means planning for irrigation, season extenders, shade protection, pest management, trellises, and designing your pathways for convenience, and also keeping your most used tools within easy reach. When your garden is designed for just you, it becomes manageable and productive, and the most important part, enjoyable. Starting small and planning for your abilities doesn't just prevent burnout. It sets you up to actually succeed, and every single crop that you plant has a much better chance of thriving, and your garden becomes a source of food and freedom instead of stress. Hack number 2 is all about timing and utilizing succession planting, seasonal eating, and growing with your climate instead of fighting against it to be less overwhelmed and also less reliant on the grocery store. A big reason that gardeners burn out is because they plant everything at once or they try to grow and preserve all of the things. That's overwhelming and not sustainable. Take it from me. I was in that spot and nothing feels more satisfying than not letting that burnout win by coming back with a better system. The conventional plant it all at once and preserve everything advice is a trap. It's designed for panic prepping and not for a garden that fits your life. So here's the shift. Instead of planting the whole garden at once, you can stagger your crops and take advantage of each one of your seasons. You can use season extenders to harvest earlier and later. Lettuce, beans, and other quick-growing crops can be sown every couple of weeks for a steady, manageable harvest. And instead of preserving everything, you can lean into seasonal eating, preserve just enough to bridge the gaps, and then think about long-term storage with winter squash, garlic, and root crops for winter. This isn't just about planting dates, it's about working with your climate and your microclimate. And for me, I am in zone 8A, right next to the mountains, so I plan around our averages and our microclimate. And something really important is to not chase perfection. Succession planting itself can feel overwhelming too, and in some years like this one, since I'm still rebuilding after our move, I don't get it all done, but I always plan ahead for next year. One simple system that helps me is keeping just a cheap desk calendar just for my plantings. My life is so busy that I have a tendency to not do things unless I have them written down on actual paper that tells me to do it. not my phone, but actual paper, and it's alongside my garden journal to help me stay on track. If starting seeds indoors fits into your life, that can really help you be more efficient in a small space. If you have a long, warm season, you can even plant more than one round of crops that tend to be affected and wear out from extreme summer weather, like tomatoes, cucumbers, and summer squash. A bit of planning ahead can take away the stress of trying to keep tired plants producing. And intercropping, like tucking lettuce under tomatoes, helps you stretch your season and maximize your space. You can see how the key is working with your climate and not fighting it. When you pair succession planting with seasonal eating and choices based on your climate, your garden becomes a more continuous, sustainable food source with less waste, less burnout, and more food that actually fits your life. And now in my free training, I walk you through step by step how I designed a small garden that feeds my family and helps us rely less on the grocery store. The link's in the description if you'd like to join me. And now let's move on to hack 3, lazy gardening strategies that save you hours of work. Hack number 3 is all about working smarter in your garden instead of harder, and it's really just gardening with nature. The idea is to set up your garden so that it's more self-sufficient while still giving you a productive, manageable harvest. Most gardening advice makes you feel like you have to fight your soil, fight your weeds, and even your plants. By lazy gardening, you can flip that and let nature help you. One of the biggest game changers for me was a low-till philosophy where I layer fresh compost on top of my existing soil every time I plant something, and then I let soil's natural ecosystem do the work. Microbes thrive, the weeds tend to stay down, and it's a heck of a lot less work for me. I also aim for minimal effort plants like perennials and self-seeding plants. My perennial herbs will come back year after year, as well as my native pollinator garden, and herbs like cilantro readily reseed themselves if I let them bolt. This can happen in the smallest containers and grow bags, like my grow bag of cilantro that cycles perfectly with the seasons. Planting densely using the square foot gardening method is another trick that pays back. I've found that when I combine dense planting with a little common sense companion planting, the taller plants shade the smaller ones, which slows bolting and reduces weeds. The soil microbes are also happy with different kinds of roots providing nutrients, and the soil is protected, which leads to less watering demands. It's like letting nature do part of the work for you, and the garden ecosystem thrives with almost zero extra effort. Dense planting isn't just for productivity. It suppresses weeds and keeps your plants healthy with less hands-on work. Finally, I like to automate whatever I can. A simple drip irrigation system with a timer gives my plants exactly what they need while letting me skip a daily task. Even in a small garden, this little upgrade saves me hours, reduces my stress, and keeps my crops happy. So lazy gardening isn't about doing nothing. It's about designing your system so that you get the biggest harvest for the least effort. When you pair low-till beds, dense plantings, self-seeding plants, and automated watering, suddenly your garden works with you and not against you. And that's how you finally get your summers back. Hack number 4 is all about planting once and reaping the benefits for years to come. Perennials and self-seeding crops are the backbone of a low-maintenance, resilient garden, and they're totally aligned with the movement I'm building, which is small space, high value, low stress, solo gardening that allows us to rely less on the grocery store. I learned the hard way that planting the same annuals year after year was exhausting, even with crop rotation and a massive space. There's nothing lazy about planting, watering, and tending the same crops over and over, and that's why mixing in perennials can change your life. It's still a work in progress in my current small space garden, as I aim to add a few every year. But I have a good start with several perennial herbs like lemon balm, rosemary, and chives, just to name a few, and they give me steady harvests without replanting, and they can handle a little bit of neglect. And strawberries, I go from planting a small patch to multiple harvests and free plants year after year. I'm just getting started with my blueberry patch in my small space where I planted some in a raised bed, and I'd like to add some rabbit eye varieties to my garden because they're native to our area. I also have a perennial pollinator garden that helps balance and reduce pest pressures. I'll let some lettuce, cilantro, and dill bolt, and then the seeds scatter where they may. When these volunteers show up, they're the best helpers you can ever have in your garden. Perennials and self-seeders also support seasonal eating and succession planting because you have more flexibility to stagger plantings, interplant quick crops under slower ones, and focus on long-term storage crops without feeling overwhelmed. Here's a simple approach. You can prioritize perennials in your design because even a few perennials will reduce your workload and give your garden a reliable backbone. Plan self-seeding plants strategically, and then you can guide them to grow where you need them rather than letting them pop up randomly. By leaning on perennials and self-seeding plants, your garden starts to run itself more, and that's exactly the freedom that you want when you're building a small space system that fits your life. Hack number 5 is about letting your garden do even more of the heavy lifting for you. Mulch and soil protection are kind of like the unsung heroes because they save you hours of weeding, they reduce watering, and they improve soil health over time. Most gardeners think that mulch is just for looks, but it's actually your secret weapon against weeds, invasive plants, and soil burnout. In the early years of my huge garden, I spent hours pulling weeds and watering constantly and worrying about compacted soil. When I discovered deep permanent mulching, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And now I layer mulch in my raised beds, in my containers, and on the paths around my raised beds. Pretty instantly, I noticed fewer weeds and less water evaporation, and now I can see that healthier soil is building underneath the mulch. Mulching blocks sunlight from weed seeds, helping keep a lot of the invasive plants at bay. It retains moisture, making your irrigation more efficient, and it slowly breaks down to feed the soil. For burnt out or neglected spaces, mulch is a lifesaver. I've revived tired beds simply by smothering weeds with cardboard and letting mulch do its thing. It's a simple, almost lazy way to rebuild soil health, suppress invasive weeds, and reclaim your space. Here's how I apply it practically. I start thick with around 3 to 4 inches of organic mulch. I use it year-round and keep soil covered whenever possible to protect against erosion, preserve nutrients, and keep invasive weeds from taking hold. I utilize chip drop, which I've mentioned in previous videos, but chip drop may be a good and free option for you if you have the space for a pile of wood chips to be delivered. With good natural mulch in place, your garden becomes more self-supporting and you have less maintenance, healthier plants, and more time to enjoy the fruits of your labor without feeling chained to the garden. If you take just one thing from today, let it be this. Gardening doesn't have to drain your time, your energy, or your sanity. You can grow a productive, manageable, and even enjoyable garden in a small space without following conventional rules that don't fit your life. I've been there, burned out, overwhelmed, and ready to quit. But I've created a garden that feeds my family and saves me hours of work. And if I can do it after years of mistakes and a huge, exhausting garden, you can too. If you want to dive deeper, in my free training, I walk you step by step through how I design my small space, high-value garden system to feed my family year-round while keeping things simple and stress-free. The link is in the description so you can grab your spot and start transforming your garden today. Set up your garden so it gives you more freedom and not more stress. Take small steps, smart planning, and you'll actually get to enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.